Even Hollywood's kindest director has limits. The industry has long celebrated Ron Howard as the model of patience, generosity, and quiet authority, a man whose reputation for calm professionalism seems almost untouched by the turbulence that defines the entertainment world. Yet behind the soft-spoken manner and the familiar, reassuring smile lies a more complex reality. There are moments in a career as long and influential as Howard's when even the gentlest figure reaches a point where tolerance gives way to self-preservation. These moments, often hidden from public view, reveal the private battles that shaped the director's philosophy and solidified his belief that respect, discipline, and consistency are not optional virtues, but essential foundations for any creative endeavor. Ron Howard's journey through Hollywood began long before he ever stepped behind a camera. As a red-haired child on The Andy Griffith Show, he learned early that the warmth presented on screen did not always match the dynamic behind it. Throughout the decades that followed, as he transitioned from a beloved actor to one of the most dependable filmmakers of his generation, Howard built a style that placed professionalism above ego and harmony above chaos. His sets became known as places where performers felt safe, guided, and heard. Yet the industry is full of personalities whose intensity, volatility, or unchecked influence can challenge even the most balanced environment. The 7 actors whose stories define this narrative did not simply test Howard's patience. They forced him to examine his principles, refine his leadership, and confront the uncomfortable truth that kindness without boundaries can destabilize an entire production. These were not fleeting creative disagreements nor minor misunderstandings that resolved themselves by the next morning. They were profound collisions between temperament, authority, and artistic vision, clashes that lingered long after the final take and influenced Howard's casting choices for years. Today, we explore the hidden history behind those encounters. From childhood disillusionment to volatile co-stars and legends who vent entire productions to their whims, these experiences reveal the rarely discussed challenges of managing talent in an industry that often rewards the loudest voice in the room. Through these untold conflicts, we uncover how the man known as Hollywood's nicest director discovered the hard boundaries that would eventually define his legacy. Ron Howard's early experiences in the industry revealed a truth that would follow him throughout his career. The environments that appear the calmest on screen often conceal storms that young performers must learn to navigate with caution. For Howard, the first storm arrived not in adulthood, but in childhood, at an age when most children are still learning how to interpret the world around them. His time on The Andy Griffith Show created the public image of a wholesome, small-town boy living within a perfect television family. Yet behind that image was a more complicated classroom, where he absorbed lessons about authority, temperament, and emotional unpredictability long before he had the vocabulary to articulate them. Andy Griffith, celebrated as the moral center of Mayberry, initially welcomed Howard with warmth and encouragement. According to Howard's reflections from later decades, Griffith treated him not as a prop, but as a partner, allowing the young actor to feel valued within a demanding adult environment. For a time, this mentorship shaped Howard's belief that respect should be the foundation of every creative relationship. However, as the show progressed and the pressures on Griffith intensified, the dynamic shifted. Biographers have noted that Griffith's increasing irritability, coupled with the weight of leading a highly successful television series, created moments of tension that those closest to the production could not ignore. Cast members reported that Griffith became more controlling, less patient, and far more reactive to challenges or perceived disruptions. For Howard, now older and more confident in his artistic curiosity, asking questions about character or story direction sometimes triggered reactions he had never seen from the man who played his father figure. This disconnect pierced the illusion of Mayberry and introduced him to the reality that authority, when strained, could overshadow kindness. The experience left a subtle but permanent mark, influencing the type of leadership he chose to adopt once he began directing. Years later, during the production of the high-stakes thriller Ransom in 1996, Howard encountered a very different kind of challenge. Tom Sizemore was an actor of remarkable intensity, a performer whose presence on screen carried a natural weight. Yet off-screen, the volatility that had already shaped much of his public reputation became a daily obstacle. Sizemore's arrivals were unpredictable. His energy could shift rapidly from moment to moment, creating an atmosphere of instability that spread across the set. Crew members recalled retakes piling up not because of forgotten lines, but because the emotional cadence of entire scenes collapsed under his erratic rhythm. Howard, whose sets were known for their sense of calm structure, found himself recalibrating entire days around a single performance. In a rare acknowledgement, he later stated that there were moments when he had to reorganize the entire production to accommodate the energy of one individual. This was a direct contrast to his preferred approach, one built on preparation, clarity, and shared discipline. The lesson he drew from Ransom was not rooted in anger, but in the recognition that a single unstable force can fracture the trust required for creative work. When Sizemore passed away years later, Howard's silence was not a judgment, but a confirmation that some collaborations leave behind unresolved distance. The next pivotal challenge arrived far earlier in Howard's directing career, at a point when he was still learning how to assert authority while maintaining the collaborative spirit he valued. In 1982, on the film Night Shift, Howard stepped into his first major studio directing opportunity. He entered the project eager, focused, and committed to fostering an environment where spontaneity and professionalism could coexist. Michael Keaton thrived within that structure, using improvisation to bring energy and unpredictability to the film. Shelley Long approached the work from the opposite direction. Her preparation was meticulous, her commitment to precision unwavering. She questioned blocking, resisted improvised moments, and insisted on dissecting nearly every scene before allowing the cameras to roll. Howard found himself caught between two artistic philosophies, each valid but deeply incompatible. Crew members recalled Long's discussions becoming prolonged debates, sometimes delaying production for hours. Howard did not raise his voice, nor did he assert dominance. Instead, he attempted to navigate the competing demands, adjusting his methods in real time to preserve the sense of harmony he believed was essential. Years later, he described such experiences as educational, acknowledging that some performers arrive with such fixed interpretations that discovery becomes nearly impossible. Night Shift revealed to him that creative control, when too rigid, can suffocate the spontaneity that cinema requires. These early encounters formed the foundation of Howard's understanding of conflict. They taught him that temperament, preparation, and emotional stability are as vital to filmmaking as talent. They also revealed that the root of every challenge lies not in ego alone, but in the intricate balance between personality and process. For Howard, these first lessons were not failures. They were the beginnings of a leadership philosophy defined by empathy, boundaries, and an unwavering respect for the craft. As Ron Howard's career expanded into larger, more ambitious productions, the emotional and technical demands placed upon him grew in equal measure. By the time he reached the early 2000s, Howard had become one of the industry's most trusted directors, known for guiding major studio films with a steady, thoughtful approach. Yet the scale of these productions also meant that he would encounter performers whose artistic intensity and personal influence created environments unlike anything he had previously managed. These experiences pushed him to confront the tension between creative passion and professional boundaries, revealing how even a well-prepared filmmaker can find himself navigating unpredictable terrain. The collaboration with Russell Crowe on A Beautiful Mind became one of the clearest demonstrations of this reality. Crowe, already an acclaimed actor known for his raw commitment, approached every role as a psychological excavation. His process demanded full immersion, often blurring the line between performance and personal identity. When he stepped onto Howard's set, he carried with him a force of focus so sharp that it reshaped the tone of the entire production. Those who worked alongside him described him as arriving each day prepared for a kind of internal battle, not against his colleagues, but against the very structure of filmmaking. He questioned rewrites, dissected camera angles, and treated every note from Howard as an invitation to push deeper into the emotional core of each scene. Insiders later stated that the dynamic between Howard and Crowe was not defined by hostility, but by a continuous negotiation. Howard believed in guiding performers gently, creating a space where trust could flourish. Crowe believed in meeting the material with unfiltered intensity, regardless of whether that intensity created friction. The result was a production marked by breathtaking artistry and profound strain. Assistant directors remembered Howard holding firm, not by raising his voice, but by anchoring the set with calm determination. Crowe's brilliance elevated the film, but his intensity made the process far more difficult than the director anticipated. Howard later reflected that working with some actors required holding on rather than steering, a statement that, without naming Crowe directly, captured the essence of their collaboration. Although A Beautiful Mind went on to win Best Picture and secure its place in cinematic history, the behind-the-scenes toll left Howard with a quiet understanding that some creative partnerships, no matter how successful, are not meant to be revisited. The challenges of working with Russell Crowe were rooted in passion, artistry, and clashing methodologies. The challenges that Howard faced with Marlon Brando came from an entirely different place, one shaped by age, legacy, and a disregard for conventional filmmaking structure. When Howard was given the opportunity in the mid-1990s to direct a project featuring Brando, it seemed like a professional milestone. Brando was a cinematic titan, a performer whose impact on acting techniques and screen presence had redefined an entire generation of film. However, by this stage in his life, Brando's relationship with the craft had shifted dramatically. He no longer approached films as collaborative works, but as platforms through which he could assert creative dominance without regard for schedules, budgets, or the efforts of those around him. Accounts from those present described Brando arriving on set without learning his lines, insisting that dialogue be printed on cue cards placed within his line of sight, and pausing scenes to demand new motivations or entirely different interpretations. The set, which should have functioned as a coordinated ecosystem, instead became an arena governed by one man's whims. Howard attempted to maintain order, adjusting his direction with patience and professionalism, but Brando's unpredictability undermined even the most carefully constructed plans. There were days when he disappeared for hours, delaying production and leaving the cast and crew waiting in a state of uncertainty. The pivotal moment arrived during what should have been a simple exchange of dialogue. Brando interrupted repeatedly, ordered immediate rewrites, departed the set for an extended period, and returned with a completely new vision for his character. The demands to restart filming from the beginning forced Howard to confront an uncomfortable truth. Even the most revered legends can destabilize a project when discipline and respect fall away. Ultimately, the production collapsed under the weight of these disruptions. Howard did not publicly criticize Brando, choosing instead to maintain the diplomacy that had become one of his professional signatures. Yet those within the industry understood that the experience had left a lasting impression. The encounter revealed the vulnerability of a director, even one as experienced as Howard, when placed in a creative environment governed by inconsistency. It also cemented his belief that talent cannot compensate for a breakdown in mutual respect. Brando's influence had once shaped the world of performance, but in this instance, the absence of structure overshadowed the brilliance that defined his earlier years. Together, the experiences with Crowe and Brando exposed Howard to extremes, one driven by overwhelming passion, the other by unrestrained autonomy. These encounters added new layers to the lessons he had begun learning decades earlier. They showed him that artistic greatness, when detached from discipline, can threaten the integrity of a production. More importantly, they reminded him that a director's responsibility extends beyond shaping performances. It also includes protecting the environment where those performances emerge. As Ron Howard moved further into his directing career, the lessons he carried from earlier conflicts continued to shape his leadership. Yet two encounters in particular forced him to confront the emotional core of his professional identity. These experiences did not unfold on chaotic sets or within crumbling productions. Instead, they emerged from evolving dynamics with individuals he deeply respected, revealing that tension can arise not only from volatility or ego, but from the shifting gravity of fame itself. The relationship between Howard and Henry Winkler began within the glowing nostalgia of Happy Days, a show crafted to embody warmth, humor, and a sense of domestic comfort. When the series premiered in 1974, Howard entered the production as its central figure, the familiar American boy next door. His years as Opie had made him instantly recognizable, and his presence offered the show a sense of continuity and stability. Winkler, cast as Arthur Fonzarelli, was initially intended as a supporting character, a rebellious contrast to Howard's clean-cut persona. However, the cultural landscape of the time responded with unexpected intensity to the leather-jacketed rebel. The Fonz quickly evolved from side character to phenomenon, and the axis of the show shifted with him. Writers and producers, sensing the momentum, began redesigning episode structures to emphasize Winkler's magnetic charisma. Promotional materials featured him more prominently, and fans rallied behind his iconic gestures and streetwise charm. Howard, who had envisioned Happy Days as a stepping stone toward a directing career, found himself quietly overshadowed on a show originally built around his character. According to reflections from both cast and crew, the tension did not stem from personal animosity. Howard admired Winkler and recognized his talent. Yet, the inevitable redistribution of attention created internal friction, the type that cannot be vocalized without disrupting the delicate balance of ensemble work. Years later, Howard admitted that the experience forced him to reevaluate his place in front of the camera. He felt the narrative shifting around him, leaving him as a figure whose presence remained essential but not central. The situation illuminated a truth he had sensed since childhood. The entertainment industry can reorient itself overnight, and even those at the center of a story can find themselves standing at its edge with little warning. Rather than resisting the transition, Howard saw it as a sign. His ambitions had always tilted toward storytelling, and the dynamic on Happy Days pushed him to pursue directing with renewed purpose. This inflection point, subtle yet deeply personal, became one of the most influential turning points in his career. If the experience with Henry Winkler revealed how fame can reshape creative hierarchies, Howard's collaboration with Mel Gibson on Ransom exposed how star power can challenge authority within the filmmaking process itself. By 1996, Gibson was at the height of his career, having recently earned Academy Awards for both acting and directing. His presence on any production carried enormous influence, and his confidence in his artistic instincts was undeniable. When Howard signed on to direct Ransom, the partnership appeared ideal. Both men were committed professionals with strong creative visions and reputations for excellence. However, once the cameras rolled, the dynamics proved more complex. Gibson's approach to filmmaking was intensely hands-on. He questioned script choices, debated camera placement, and offered input on aspects of production that typically fell outside an actor's domain. Crew members observed that he weighed in on everything from line delivery to logistical decisions, often with the authority of someone accustomed to steering the ship. Howard, known for fostering open collaboration, found himself navigating a constant stream of suggestions, challenges, and revisions. His leadership required a careful balance of attentiveness and firmness, acknowledging Gibson's remarkable talent while protecting the structure that held the production together. The situation did not escalate into public conflict, but the strain was evident. Howard's steady demeanor remained intact, yet he spent considerable energy ensuring that the equilibrium of his set was preserved. Behind the scenes, colleagues described him as working double duty, simultaneously directing the film and mediating the effects of Gibson's influence. The experience solidified a realization that had been forming throughout his career. A director must not only shape performances, but also safeguard the environment in which those performances occur. Without clear boundaries, even the most gifted collaborators can unintentionally disrupt the rhythm of a production. By the time Ransom concluded, Howard had gained valuable insight. The challenge with Gibson did not stem from malice or negligence, but from the natural collision between two strong creative forces. Yet, the emotional toll reminded him that leadership requires both empathy and decisiveness. Some partnerships, no matter how successful on screen, demand more energy than a healthy working environment can sustain. And these encounters with Winkler and Gibson, Howard reached the emotional climax of his long journey through the complexities of collaboration. Together, these experiences clarified the philosophy that would define his later years: protect the craft, protect the people, and protect the process. Anything less would endanger the trust essential to storytelling. Across the decades of his remarkable career, Ron Howard forged a path defined not by confrontation, but by clarity of purpose. The conflicts he encountered did not harden him, nor did they erode the kindness that audiences have long associated with his name. Instead, they shaped a disciplined understanding of what it truly means to lead a creative environment. From the shifting dynamics of Happy Days to the emotional storms of Ransom, each interaction revealed that a harmonious set is not created by chance. It is built through deliberate choices, respectful communication, and a willingness to establish boundaries even when those boundaries stand opposite immense celebrity influence. Howard learned that the greatest threat to a production is not artistic ambition, but the erosion of trust. Without stability, preparation, and mutual respect, even the most talented ensembles falter. His experiences with unpredictable actors, commanding personalities, and legends who treated the process as secondary reinforced a truth he had sensed since childhood. Professionalism is not an aspiration. It is the anchor that allows creativity to flourish. When that anchor weakens, the integrity of the story and the well-being of the crew are placed at risk. In the years that followed these encounters, Howard continued to build a reputation for directing with empathy and precision. His commitment to creating safe, collaborative spaces became a hallmark of his leadership. Colleagues often described him as the quiet center of any storm, a figure who brought steadiness to projects of immense size and complexity. Yet the philosophy behind that steadiness was earned through experience. The quiet conflicts that unfolded behind closed doors taught him the cost of compromise and the necessity of holding firm to one's values. These lessons did not diminish his kindness, they refined it, giving it structure, intention, and resilience. Howard's story invites a broader reflection on the entertainment industry itself. Fame can amplify talent, but it can also distort relationships and power dynamics. Creative brilliance can elevate a film, but it can also destabilize it if not balanced by discipline. The myth of the benevolent director who absorbs every disruption without resistance is just that, a myth. In reality, sustainable filmmaking requires leaders who are willing to protect the process as fiercely as they protect the art. As we look back on the 7 actors who tested the limits of Hollywood's most patient director, the question that remains is both simple and revealing. Were Howard's expectations too high, or were these performers crossing the boundaries of professionalism that every collaborative environment depends upon? The answer shapes not only how we understand these individual stories, but how we view the responsibilities of those who guide the creative world forward. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments and join us for more untold histories, hidden dynamics, and the complex truth behind the entertainment industry's most legendary figures.